Hey guys, welcome back to the BFC, where we go into the trenches of the trading world. I know some of you are thinking like, what the hell are you doing at 8:30 in the morning? Well, we have a Buffalo News exclusive. And by the way, we have a snow day here in Buffalo. We're getting pummeled with snow. So yeah, it's an exciting day. And this couldn't have happened at the best time. This is perfect, guys. This is great. It's not perfect that we got to start shoveling and snow blowing in a couple hours, but hey, it's going to be fun. So how are you guys doing? Who's with us in the chat? I don't want to waste much time here. I want to get right into the nitty gritty. The CYBL update is up. The leadership forum, it's just been released. I thought we could watch it together. If you're in the chat, let me know. Let me know who's here. And hey, are we going to get Will OS in the chat? Will, are you with me? So Will was actually down there when they recorded this, but listen, guys, I don't want to waste any time. I'm going to get right into this, and we're going to watch this together. I'm going to play the whole thing without interruption. I will comment at the end. If you have any comments while it's going on and you want to, bookmark some thoughts, please put them in the chat. And we're just going to get through this and get to the nitty gritty. And yes, we will have more news throughout the day. So we're going to have 2 broadcasts today. So let's get to it, guys. Here we go.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us today. We have a lot to cover, and it's great to speak with you again. It's been a while, but we have a lot to report and have some great distinguished guests with us today. To my right, I have Major General Cameron Holt. To my left, I have Ferdi Razari, former Brigadier General with the U.S. Army. 2 very fundamental components to our advisory board. Lieutenant General Paul Ostrowski is going to be joining us remote, so you'll see him as we are able to integrate him into the broadcast. I also am joined today by our Chief Revenue Officer, Bill Matarani. Bill is actually in Beirut, so he's coming to us remote as he's working on some of the regional opportunities that have presented themselves, as I'm sure you're aware, with all the events in the news. It's been a while since we've been able to have a conversation. The company's been working very hard to achieve its compliance goals and to work with the OTC markets group to get beyond the CE timeframe in that whole era. In that time, we have really had some fundamental transformational change in the company. We have shed the businesses that we had been pursuing outside of the defense industry, the defense sector. You might remember that we were pursuing things like digital transformation. And while that's still relevant inside the defense industry, and more importantly inside the company, it really was not something that we felt was a core competency of ours. Similar with the other businesses where we were pursuing some renewable energy projects, et cetera. So in the course of the last 2 years, we have acquired a drone platform company, Catalyst Machine Works. I'm sure everyone's familiar with that. We've also been able to close a contract with the Ukrainian effort. Along with that, we were able to acquire Datron World Communication. We were able to bring Bill into the mix because of that acquisition. And we've now had a year of operating as an integrated company, working to streamline operations and attack all the opportunities that are available to us. I do want to give Bill a moment to introduce himself and say a few words, and then we'll have our advisory board members follow suit. Bill, tossing it to you.
First and foremost, I'm glad to be here. With a history of over $1 billion in sales of equipment and services, we understand the process of accomplishing that goal again, and have positioned Cyberlux to meet and exceed that number. This is the reason why we created the Global Integration Services Group. Their concentration is going to be in the following combatant commands: Southcom, AFRICOM, EUCOM, CENTCOM, and INDOPACOM. Thank you.
To help with the understanding of the Cyberlux Corporation as it currently has evolved, I prepared some slides to answer some very specific questions. We'll move through those pretty rapidly. And then I want to have the opportunity with our advisory board members to have a fireside chat where we can discuss more detailed, more nuanced topics.
It's really an honor today to be joined by my distinguished colleagues, Lieutenant General Paul Ostrowski, Major General Cameron Holt, Brigadier General Bertie Rosari, and my CyberLux colleague, Bill Matarani, who's our Chief Revenue Officer. As a brief overview of the company, our mission is a defense industry solutions provider. We serve both the U.S. forces and our partner nations around the world. We are organized into 3 verticals inside the company. UAS, our Unmanned Aircraft Systems Division. Our focus is providing tactical intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, and kinetic strike drones of what is known as Type 1 or Group 1 size. These are focused on being very cost effective and positioned for rapid deployment for whatever dynamic battle space we find ourselves in. Daytime Military Communications, which provides HF, VHF, and UHF tactical radios for naval, land, and other government uses, including some countries we are being used as a backbone for avionics in certain cases. And then finally, our newest division, which has developed over the last couple of years of activity, which now has settled down into global integration services. This is where we bring expertise across many domains to encompass both military training and advisement, and also to support market requirements that our partner nations have that transcend the typical products that CyberLux has to offer through our UAS and DMC divisions. From an organizational standpoint, we get to work with our advisory board very closely. It's been an amazing skill set and capabilities reach for us to be able to include these distinguished guys in our management team. And then across the company, you'll find that we have the typical organizational elements that you might find supporting the 3 divisions we just discussed, UAS, DMC, and GIS. Our Unmanned Aircraft Systems Division introduced the X series in May of this year, which is a next generation version of the aircraft that was first deployed in Ukraine. There are many variants of it. This slide addresses our K8 evolution into the X8. There are variants underneath the X8 series and across all the X series, which is denoted by the .XX. In this case, we are focused on, again, rugged modular capability built into a component level deployment where various modifications can be made for various mission sets. And we have included in that the capability of adding and artificial intelligence, machine learning capability for advanced targeting. Our 2 primary objectives with these platforms are to deliver large manufacturing quantities. So it's very much a manufacturing based capability, that we know is the coming battle space requirements will yield, could require millions of these types of drones. And then also the ability to dynamically attack targets through a AI ML engine that we think will provide leadership and differentiation across our particular UAS capabilities. This chart really depicts the way we see the UAS battle space. You'll see that there are represented group 1, 2, and 3 drones. We are working internally on our own capabilities across those groups, but within our GIS group, the GIS business unit, we are also partnering where we know there are requirements that need to be fulfilled for our partner nations right now. And we will work with various partners to fulfill whatever needs there are in these various partner countries. At the same time, we are expanding our X series, as you can see, to address all the tactical ISR and kinetic space that have requirements as well. Our Datron Military Communications business unit is focused on tactical and strategic HF, VHF, and UHF capabilities. We are one of 2 U.S. manufacturers of military communications equipment at this level. So we are in very much an American supplier in a very competitive marketplace, but one that we have carved out a global presence over the last 50 years. 50 years is really the beginning of the DNA that has formed Datron World Communications 25 plus years ago. And the company has been operating globally through foreign military sales over that last 25 years with a very distinct focus on the foreign military sales market. We've had over $1 billion of install base outside the US. This includes being the program of record for our US time in Afghanistan, really designed around a rugged, easy to use, cost effective, and field maintainable. And the company is very committed to delivering a total package approach, which means not only the product, but services and also field supportability. Within the Datron military communication space, we have high frequency, which includes base stations and man packs. These can be deployed in centralized base locations or portable mobility, depending upon the use case. Includes a whole range of features, including an AES 256 encryption. Our very and ultra high frequency capabilities, again, include something that's unique in the industry, which is a jerk and run feature, which allows for a standard handheld radio to actually be deployed as a base station. And then as events on the ground may require, can easily be disconnected and carried to a safe location if there's the end user is under fire. We also have IP addressability and various Transec and ComSec options. Our Global Integration Services unit, again, is a compendium of experiences we've had through both Datron and our CyberLux UAS experiences that really came to bear with the fact that there were a significant amount of requirements we were seeing coming out of not only Ukraine, but other partner nation needs on a global basis. And it just became clear that with our unique access to channels and unique partnerships and relationships that were available, having a structured offering of integrated capability really made the most sense. This includes, of course, developing tailored mission-ready solutions and deploying those systems. We have 4 areas of specific interest: border security surveillance technologies, the transponder instrument landing systems, maritime surveillance and microwave networks, and then our long endurance fixed wing VTOL unmanned aircraft systems capability, where today we may not have that constituently available through our UAS team, but the requirements on a global basis are so significant. We have found partners that can help us fulfill those requirements. From a border security surveillance technology standpoint, we have a whole portfolio of leading edge radar, sensors, communications, power, and command and control technologies. That includes small UAS detection radars, also mobile surveillance platforms, man portable surveillance as necessary, and then of the ground surveillance radar as a baseline. Maritime surveillance and microwave networks, particularly with the emergence of Indo-PACOM as a very significant market, will be very prominent in the work that GIS uses. This includes fixed and mobile maritime solutions, surveillance solutions, microwave networks, and certainly with all of this comes a sustainment plan that includes training and operational support, including field service reps in market, and that really covers all of the global integration services deployments. We will have field service reps in country supporting the integrated solution as the partner nation requires. From a long endurance fixed wing VTOL UAS standpoint, when we see requirements that require long flight time, unique payload, specific ISR capability, we now have a set of partners that we will turn to fulfill those requirements. On this chart are a couple of sensor and ISR packages, but this transcends just ISR and even kinetic packages to the platforms and the global deployment of some of these partner solutions that already exist and we're taking full advantage of with new requirements that are emerging from the various markets that we are finding prominent requirements in. This is really the definition of what we collectively call CyberLux Defense. It's a moniker we use to really encapsulate the 3 divisions inside the company, and it I think is a good catch-all for the world that we see CyberLux pursuing as we go forward over the next let's say 5-year horizon as a target zone. Thank you very much.
Let me ask our distinguished guests here to introduce themselves. Cameron?
Hi, I'm Cameron Holt. I'm a retired Major General from the Air Force. I left the Air Force 2 years ago as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Contracting, and also had the opportunity to lead an acquisition task force when the pandemic hit. My boss, Will Roper, asked me to stand up a task force to help DHHS. And the Air Force was gracious enough to give me access to our full acquisition capability. And we were given 2 tasks. One was to shore up the defense industrial base from those places in our supply chains that had been immediately financially threatened and capabilities threatened. And then the second task was to reshore all the medical manufacturing to the United States that was critical to the response effort. So I'm really pleased to be here. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. Heard?
Thanks, Mark. Freddie Rosari, retired Army Brigadier General. And I spent the preponderance of the last 20 years of my career working on civil military cooperation tasks, which sent me all over the world to help restore communities in the aftermath of conflict. So I think the one thing I can bring to the table is a lot of experience working with a large, disparate communities of nonprofits, local government, the people, and the military in particular. So I'm really excited about being part of the team.
Thanks very much. General Irizarry was actually one of our initial advisory board members from the very beginning. He and another gentleman were on the ground with me and the team when we were first testing and working on the productization of the K8. So General's been here from the beginning, and we really appreciate his ongoing activity. Now, most recently, General Holt has been helping us with our entire K8 contract from the beginning to the end, and we've really appreciated his steady hand and help. We were able to negotiate, I think, an amazing contract from a CYBL standpoint because of General Holt's involvement, and we really appreciate both of you being here. Let me just suggest a couple of topics to get your comments on. So I was thinking about the state of the defense industry in the U.S. and wanted to get your comments on where you all see us as a country, and then, you know, how CyberLux can actually help in the process.
Yeah, so it's a great question. Let me just start with the very challenging national security situation we find ourselves in. Coming out of the Cold War, I would say that when 9/11 hit, our whole national security strategy was best summed up by saying, well, I don't know. And so in some ways, that has kind of prevailed since then. I would argue that although, we were heavily engaged in Afghanistan and Iraq and a number of other things, which we needed to after 9/11, it really pulled us away from something that was in progress already. And that is the rise of China. And so we face a world of great power competition, but we also face the old world that we just left. And that was really at the low point, I will say, in the evacuation from Afghanistan. And what you saw within the context of great power competition is a cascading deterioration of global deterrence. And so now around the globe, there are many nations facing old scores to settle in a world without a strong United States.
Yeah.
That has given rise to a much different national security situation. And yet the defense industrial base really hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And so you've got a very small number of very large players after a massive consolidation through the 80s and 90s. And we have in the greater context of technology in the United States, we've almost flipped from where we were in the 1980s. In the 1980s, we had a situation where 80% or so of all the research and development dollars in the United States were spent in some sort of defense-related activity. And defense really was the state of the art in technology. And as we have experienced that flip and the consolidation of the defense industry, it's become very niche and very controlled by a very small number of very large, exquisite, and capable contractors. Along the same path, we've become extraordinarily comfortable and bureaucratic. And we are, believe it or not, still using a system to budget and fund and execute national defense with a system that was derived by Robert McNamara in 1961 when he was the Secretary of Defense. And so now we've got a situation where everybody realizes, I think, that we have to find new ways with new technologists. We have to embrace small companies with big ideas. And we have to be faster. So far, I have not seen us turn the corner from having it in the punchline of speeches to moving into a real sense of urgency. But I've got to tell you, I'm with the new administration coming in, and some of the things I'm hearing from the new congressmen that are coming in and new senators, I am optimistic that we are going to turn a corner and really start to put action behind the words. And that's where I think CyberLux has a tremendous opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so can I just say I agree with him and then just, which, that concludes my remarks. Break. Actually, I would agree with everything you just said. Maybe to add a little more color to it, to your comments, I would say that all of the expositions and conferences and seminars and workshops that I've been going to, just as you mentioned, the leadership for the first time, I think, is, hitting the podium or tapping the floor and saying, we've got to be lighter on our feet, faster and innovate. I think a lot of the programs are starting to come online. And my hunch would be that we've got two challenges in front of us. One is that people are going to have to learn the new system and have confidence in it, which in the Department of Defense means there are a lot of folks who are used to one protocol.
Yeah.
And they're comfortable with it. They've never got in trouble doing it that way. And now they're going to have to learn a new one. And we've got to pray that the legal teams that are affiliated with all of these different organizations support the change. If they don't, then this is going to be very painful.
Yeah.
I hate to go after one community, but that's really what's going to hold it up, if you ask me. The flip side is, I think the capabilities and technologies that we're focusing on are exactly what the world is looking for right now. There couldn't be a better time to talk about drones and to be creative and in what drones can do. So that's just a huge opportunity. I think we're at the right side of the wave on that one.
Yeah.
When it comes to radios, I think there's a great appeal for a NATO and a US compatible radio that is simple to operate.
Yeah.
There can't be anything more difficult to work with than the customary US technology packed into a radio that is spectacularly capable and at the same time spectacularly complicated. And when we're working with partner nations that are critical to our security, that technology has to be simple.
That's correct.
And so anybody that's gets in line and says, I've got a simple technology that can still be compatible, I think is a really winning combination for us. So I'm excited about the potential.
Along with General Irizarry and General Holt, we also have Lieutenant General Paul Ostrowski joining us today. Paul, would you like to give a few words of introduction and maybe make some comments regarding the state of the U.S. defense industry and how you see CyberLux participating and perhaps driving innovation?
Right. Well, Mark, number one, thanks for the invitation to present today and kind of give you a little bit of what my thoughts are on CyberLux going forward. As a means of introduction, since you asked that first, my name is Paul Ostrowski. I'm a retired Lieutenant General, 36 years of public service. Throughout my entire career, I started out as a special operator, then turned acquisition, where I spent the majority of my career doing special operations acquisition before becoming a general officer. Had the privilege of being PEO soldier, so Program Executive Office soldier, in terms of all the equipment, weapon systems, sensor systems, body armor, force protection capabilities for our soldiers. I had the opportunity to provide that equipment to our forces. And then from there over to Afghanistan to support President Ghani for a year, equipping the ANDSF, and then back here to the United States as a military deputy to the Army Acquisition Executive, where I had the privilege of being in charge, basically, of the 500 programs of record within the Army. Out of the job for just a couple of days, and I got a call from the chief asking me if I'd join General Pern on Operation Warp Speed, where our mission was to provide 300 million doses of vaccines to American people. So the bottom line is I had lots of opportunities to understand the defense space, lots of opportunities to provide capability to our forces. And I realized throughout that entire process how difficult it really is. So if you wanted me to comment on where we stand in terms of the defense sector and so forth today, I will tell you that I think we're in a pretty good place in terms of demand signal. Clearly, the equipment that you've seen in Ukraine from the United States compared to that of Soviet or Russian equipment, and even that of our NATO partners, U.S. equipment demand is going through the roof. And it's because of the fact that it is that good and it is that capable. And it makes all the difference on the battlefield. The defense market, therefore, is in a good place there. We also have China and Indo-PACOM, which is a huge potential threat to us. Right now, we're in competition, but many of us believe, and I being one of them, that we are in conflict. If you look at the amount of cyber attacks that we're receiving on a day in and day out basis, not only within the Department of Defense, but also throughout the government and also throughout the commercial sector, it's clear that we are in not just competition, but in conflict. So the demand signals for what CyberLux brings to the table are also going to be there. Again, with the three verticals that we currently have with the global integration services, the UAS solutions, and the Datron military communications piece, I think we're well poised in three separate verticals that each have their own opportunity to excel. The communication side, that demand signal is out there. We have the ability to maintain communications, and we have the need to maintain communications with our combined allied partners. So Datron is always going to be there. The UAS solutions is another vertical that, again, we've seen how much of a difference UAS systems are making today on the battlefield and what they're going to do in the future. So that is a very important vertical for us. And then the global integration services, how do we get FMS to work better? How do we introduce companies to the fact that CyberLux has got footprints all over the world, people in country working with the ministries of defense in those nations, and the ability to get capability into their hands through those particular connections and linking great companies with great needs.
We've already enhanced our position in Indo-PACOM by deploying our sales director to be stationed in that AOR. He's a former Army attaché who has lots of experience in the region. As for timelines of securing additional contracts, that all depends on the FMF process, which is usually about 1 or 2 years. As for DCS, we've already secured contracts in Indo-PACOM and right now are increasing our capabilities to add more sales to our business.
The short answer is yes. For acquisitions, we're not seeking to be acquired at this point. We're still have so much growth in front of us.
Of course, we have plans to become a one-stop shop for the DoD. This is the reason why we created the Global Integration Services Group. Its goal is to provide the DoD a total package approach to their needs. Those packages include equipment from major defense suppliers that we've already got a relationship with.
I would just add that with the Global Integration Services business, we are actively seeking alliances, partnerships, and acquisitions to fill gaps where we see global nation partner needs. Within the current framework of the U.S. defense industry, small companies have a difficult time moving to the next level. Our approach and strategy is to have multiple markets we're serving through multiple product sets and technology offerings, and to bridge that gap in a way that will continue to give growth and innovation market opportunities with all of our partner nations.
Yeah, in fact, I would just comment here too, Mark. I think it's a fantastic example from my experience in acquisition. I've seen it time and time again where we've got very innovative small businesses that we're ready to transition the technologies. And just as at the pinnacle of their success as a small business, they become a small large business. And the minute they become a small large business under our regulatory system, they lose a lot of the advantages and protections that incubated them to begin with. And I think CyberLux is very well positioned to be first cognizant of that challenge and also adopt multiple growth strategies that accelerate us beyond that very, very difficult period.
Right. Thank you, sir.
So my comment about CyberLux at this point and to the future for 5 years is that almost all the technologies we're working on right now are dual use.
Yeah.
And the US government, when it funds these projects and SBIRs and SCTRs, are asking us to make sure that it's not just a military solution, but it's also a commercial solution. And so we can exploit, because of the technology we have, we can exploit success where we see it. We're not committed to one path.
We plan to be present in Ukraine for years to come. We created our Global Integration Services Group for that reason. Under that division, we've already begun partnering with companies in the construction and in the energy fields.
Because of the nature of rebuilding the Ukraine country and the economy and their military, we're going to be active for many, many years, as Bill said. We are always reviewing and looking for the right partner companies to team with, to bring our capabilities, U.S. government funding in many cases, and the ability to execute on the ground. So we expect it to be a significant opportunity for us as we look forward. Now, I would also like to add that General Irizarry was just in Poland attending a Rebuild Ukraine conference, and I would like to get some of your comments based on that.
So thanks, Mark. I've been to 2 Rebuild Ukraine conferences. Last year, I was out there, and then again this year in November. And one of the biggest takeaways from Ukraine, and what's really good for us to be engaged with them, is that they want to leapfrog and apply leapfrog technology. So they're not looking for anybody's old stuff and the reconstruction and how they reconstruct the country and fix it. They want to do leapfrog technology. And what that means to us is that the work we do and the products and the technology we propose to them will have to be cutting edge. And it'll pull us along, just like anyone else that wants to work in Ukraine. They're going to have to be creative and thinking about what really will work in the next decades ahead.
You look at how Ukrainians have driven innovation in the UAS space with this conflict, and it sounds like you see where they're going to do the same in their reconstruction of the country.
Energy, communication. There's nothing that we can propose that won't have to be cutting edge every step of the way. So it's good. It's a good problem to have.
And it's a tremendous opportunity as a result.
Yeah.
Under our GIS division, we've already partnered with a CUAS manufacturer and have already demonstrated that capability to an international customer.
I'll just add that is the tip of the spear and a huge area for both building ministries of defense capabilities and also with their border security on a global basis.
We are registered already with DDTC, the Director of Defense Trade Controls, where that allows us to apply for a license to broker deals internationally.
So, Bert and Cameron, you guys have both had different experiences working with CyberLux because of the different tasks you've been involved with. But I am interested, and I think our shareholders and interested parties would be interested in understanding what your takeaways from working with this team. We've assembled a lot of very high caliber people, and we've had some very difficult situations and timelines that have been compressed, and execution, which is always on the forefront of the CyberLux team's objectives. Just thought I'd ask, what's your takeaway? How is it to work with CyberLux? Where do you see our opportunities? Where do you see our...
Yeah, I mean, the way I would start that conversation is, one, it's fun, it's fast, and I like winning. And I think CyberLux brings all 3 of those things together. So Mark, when I left the Air Force, I took my family out to Hawaii for a vacation because it was well deserved on their behalf. And I had been to Hawaii many times as we were looking at planning for Pacific operations, and I never got to bring my family with me. And I brought them out there, and I was getting texts already in my phone, and I got some job offers from some of the very large defense firms, which I'm very humbled by and appreciative of. And it's not that I have a problem with them at all. They're really capable contractors, and but at the bottom line, I had to say no.
Mm.
And the reason I had to say no is because of the culture. We have become too complacent. Our large defense firms have become too much like the government. We've embraced a process that doesn't work. And I'll just end that by saying, you know, being around the CyberLux team is like being around warfighters that want to support warfighters. And they don't care what kind of barriers we need to break through to do that. One of the very first things I was asked to do for CyberLux was, and I didn't even know if I could help you because I was, you know, busy with a lot of things, but I decided to just write up a short paper on how to hack the foreign military sales system and move quickly. Just a couple of months later, I found myself at a big UAS conference, and I think I sent you pictures from it.
That's right.
And I walked by rows and rows and rows of large contractor solutions to the fight in Ukraine, where they were talking to general officers and senior leaders in defense. And you know what? CyberLux was nowhere in there. Now, while I will tell you I expect that to change in the future, I had to send you pictures because I think it was that morning that I had seen the announcement from the White House naming CyberLux with an approved foreign military sale. So there are those that talk about the future, and then there are those that are working it. And that's what I would summarize as so fun with working with CyberLux.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Been our pleasure. Joe?
Well, what I would add is the two things that I always really liked about CyberLux, and number one thing is I sleep good at night. And what I mean by that is I think Mark has established a culture here that involves a high degree of integrity. And no matter what we're trying to do, moving fast, as Cameron mentioned, I think we still protected the integrity. I don't think we tried to take any shortcuts. I think instead what happened was we were doing it by the numbers, but fast. And I'm really proud of that. I mean, when people came back to challenge us, I think it was very easy for us to make a compelling argument that we were right, but I felt we knew we could make that argument because we followed all the steps and that we demonstrated a high degree of integrity the whole time.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy that because I don't want to sleep badly at night worrying about that. The other thing I think is that I'm kind of fascinated by the variety of talent and experience on the team. I think it's a real eclectic crew, and I think that breeds strength into our organization.
So true.
Yeah, appreciate that. Well, it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you both on the forefront of what we've done so far. Lieutenant General Strowski joined the Board of Advisors a little later, but Paul, I'd be very interested in getting your perspective as well. You've been able to work through some of the early phases of the company as well as we were pursuing different opportunities. And most recently, you've been very helpful and integral in getting our global integration services business linked up with some phenomenal technology companies. And I think that process, you've been able to see the company operate. And I'd be really interested in your perspective also.
Well, thanks, Mark. And yeah, the bottom line is you got to go look at where the company has come from and the values that the company first and foremost has. That's what excited me the most about CyberLux. It's the honesty, it's the commitment, it is the integrity of being able to always do the right thing regardless of the situation. It's the fact that you look at this entire company from your position and you see it reflects you and the person that you are and what you bring to the table. And you surrounded yourself with experts across the different verticals that are going to allow the company to continue to do really, really well in the future. So I'm excited about working with CyberLux. I always have been. And I think that with respect to the three verticals, as I talked about before, between the military communications piece and U.S. solutions, I'm really excited about the global integration services. As I stated earlier, this is all about being able to expedite what Cameron was trying to get after. How do we get after getting the FMS process to work better for us? And not only as a nation, but also from a company perspective. The beauty is that because we have personnel that are co-located in countries of interest, nations of interest, whether it be Israel, whether it be Lebanon, whether it be Ukraine, etc., we are located in hotspots, and we have the right tentacles out there with the military departments in those particular countries to understand what the demand signals are. And when we understand what those demand signals are, we can then relate that to companies back here in the United States that don't have the luxury of having that kind of presence forward, and being able to marry the two into providing capability to those nations that we support.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate your input and your continued support. This is a labor of love for all of our advisory board members, and we appreciate everybody's time and attention to our initiatives that we think will make this a global defense power.
So another strength, the group of folks and the talent that we've assembled means that almost every single person has actually succeeded in working in ambiguous situations. And why that's a gigantic strength is I don't think we're going to be crippled by change.
Yeah.
That we can adapt to change, and no one can predict what's going to be in the future. And I think the team that we have at CyberLux has got the seniority, the maturity, and I also believe the ingenuity to adapt to any change that may come our way. So I'm excited about the future because I think we're going to have a lot of fun, as Cameron said, adapting to it and coming up with working solutions.
I appreciate your comments. We like to think about ourselves as driving change in everything that we're doing. And sometimes we are faster than we should. We have to reevaluate and regroup. But I'm very much of the strong mindset that I'd rather make a fast, bad decision and course correct quickly rather than make a slow, ultimately bad decision, because the environment we're in changes so rapidly, right? So we like to make quick decisions, course correct as we go.
So I think some companies, are intimidated by change, and some are so wedded to a solution that if a customer says, "Hey, can you make this round thing square?" they'll try to convince somebody that their thing ought to be square.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that the folks I've met so far in CyberLux, they accept the challenge, glad to find out that there's something that needs to be improved, and are willing to try and solve that problem according to what the requirements are.
Thank you, sir.
There's the thing about Ukraine.
Yeah.
Is, and maybe there's two good points. One is that Ukraine is the perfect place right now to have dual use technology.
Sure.
Right. So the drone that can identify mines for minefields is the same drone that can find mines in a farmer's land.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean? And the drone that basically can go and find, where trench works are and do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The same drone that can fly critical infrastructure.
Right.
And see what substations have been blown up and power lines have been need replacing.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Ukraine's already a very good platform for that.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing about Ukraine, though, is that I think that if you can establish your bona fides in Ukraine, you've got yourself an amazing, business card.
That's right.
For anywhere else in the world.
Yeah. That's right.
That has a similar problem.
Yeah.
So you cut your eye teeth on Ukraine, and I think you've actually created a very, very strong argument for your technology being very, very hardy, applicable, blah, 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 The other thing that I think that we get out of Ukraine is we get great employees.
Right.
So, I mean,
Very technically capable.
right. So, I
Very
mean, how can a guy who, let's say as the war winds down, the drone pilot in the war is a great drone pilot
That's right.
anywhere else in the world,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you take him and he goes over to a heavily mined country like Colombia,
Of course.
and you couldn't have a better guy.
Right.
To talk to the Colombians about unexploded ordnances and mines and stuff like that.
Well, one of our reasons for being in the Ukraine is, number one, because of our experience with people
Yeah.
and the war fighters, all of the people supporting their efforts, the dedication and the commitment, their focus on excellence and their desire for liberty and freedom, despite the countervailing odds of their success, has just been inspiring to this company. It's really informed everything we've done, and with regard to Ukraine. And we want to continue to be there because of what you mentioned, which is, first of all, the opportunity to support such a phenomenal group of people is, what else would you want to do? And then secondly, the experience you get and the ability to reapply that globally is just, there's no other place to be or to do that.
So to be squandered, right?
Yeah.
Right. The other thing about Ukraine that's good for us too is at least a third to half of Ukraine can already start undergoing all kinds of reconstruction and repairing itself. So
That's right.
I think
Demining for the next
for
10
sure.
years, right?
Yeah. So I think when some people talk about Ukraine, which is to their disadvantage, if you ask me, they're waiting for the war to end.
Right.
And I think we can engage Ukraine right now.
Exactly.
Absolutely nothing that prevents us from working on critical infrastructure, agriculture, restoring industry, all that.
Well, there's a reason why Bill and I have been to Ukraine over 8 times, and more in the future we expect. But I do think that you bring up a very good point, which is today's X8, K8 is tomorrow's demining, tomorrow's
critical infrastructure,
logistics drone. It's tomorrow's ability to harvest crops again, as that economy and their ability to be the breadbasket of the world again gets back online. So there's tremendous opportunity beyond just the military focus for our UAS capability. I'd like to just address probably the largest emerging opportunity and get some of your collective comments on INDOPACOM. And for our shareholders that may not know exactly what that is, that's really the entire Pacific region, inclusive of China and Taiwan, et cetera, Indonesia specifically. But there's been a lot of activity over the last couple of years. It's been foreshadowed or overshadowed by Ukraine. But in the background, we have had a lot of activity inside of CyberLux. And I know you both have had events to form some opinion. So I'd love to understand your point of view on the emerging opportunities there.
Yeah, I'll just start with a couple of observations. One of the great things about CyberLux is that CyberLux has this culture of being with the warfighter in the places where the warfighter is, to understand the terrain, to begin with. Not operating with a pencil and a paper at a desk somewhere in Virginia. When you look at the challenges in INDOPACOM, I mean, first thing that hits you is the size and the scale of that joint operations area. And another aspect of the INDOPACOM problem set that is complicating, but also offers tremendous opportunities, is the acknowledgement, first off, that, looking back through time, America's really good sometimes at fighting the last war. and we fail to use our imagination to understand what the next war will look like.
Yeah.
And I think more and more of us are starting to understand that even though we might define war in 20th century terms, where there has to be some explosion somewhere, there has to be an aggressive force that's actually seizing property, I don't think that that's the kind of war that we're facing or that we're engaged in currently.
Mm.
In fact, being an Air Force officer, looking back at World War I and World War II, the air domain was an emerging domain. And that domain of warfare became something that if you didn't master first, you were going to lose the war and lose it quickly.
Yeah.
As we look at the world today, there's at least 2 more domains, and I would say probably even 4 more domains of warfare that are emerging. The 2 obvious ones are cyberspace and space. And in fact, even during what we would call peacetime in 20th century war terms, there really isn't any international agreement of what represents an act of war in those 2 domains. Mm. And so you see ever increasing aggressive behaviors without any kind of deterrence, where anybody would recognize that an attack in those domains represents an act of war to which another country could respond in any domain. Yeah. And so I think you see that emerging even right now. As we look at that, even in another couple of domains, one is the economic domain and attacking of supply chains. We just recently witnessed Israel infiltrating the supply chain of the Hezbollah and then implementing a precision-guided simultaneous attack on Hezbollah leadership. Now, who would imagine that you would use an economic environment to engage the leadership on such a scale so rapidly?
Remarkable.
That's right. And the other domain that I would say is the information domain, which includes the communications domain. In Indo-PACOM, you look at a challenge of having to compress the decision cycle across vast areas in a consolidated way that gives your adversaries multiple dilemmas at the same time. So we see the emergence of artificial intelligence, the emergence of new command and control thought processes, the emergence of manned and unmanned teaming, because we can't be everywhere at once with manned platforms. Yeah. And so as we think about successful engagement in that environment, the future will favor the bold. And that's where I believe CYBLX is well positioned.
I think there's one thing we haven't talked about.
Right.
It's a psychological principle, inoculation, right? Mm-hmm. We haven't talked about any the threats to CYBLX or any of CYBLX's weaknesses.
You both have been very forthright in your praise for CYBLX and your comments about the team, et cetera. But I'm also very aware of the space we're in, the competition we face. Where are the weaknesses that you see? What do you see that we need to focus on as a company as we move to this next phase of growth?
Yeah, so I can begin. One of the things that we talk about as a strength is that CYBLX moves out quickly with solutions and is not focused on the processes. That also can become a weakness because as much as we would like to snap our fingers and erase bureaucracy and process, anytime you're spending US taxpayer money, that is going to be a part of it. And anytime that we might be equipping Americans going into harm's way, there is going to be significant technical scrutiny. And we're always going to need to have very, very tight tolerances, tight processes in every aspect of what we do. And so what I would say is CYBLX has this challenge of trying to stay on that cultural edge, but also building in the disciplines into the processes that leave absolute confidence that all of those things were not skipped. And that's where I see one tremendous challenge ahead for CyberLux as it grows.
Fully agree. John?
Well, I think it's probably pretty obvious and it's always been true, but as a global company, we're going to be vulnerable to political whim.
Yeah.
And so one threat to our company will always be the changing winds of any country we start to affiliate with.
Yeah.
And that I think is just part and parcel with being a global company. Right? We're going to work on the scale of doing business with African countries or Pacific countries. A change in regime could leave you on the wrong end of that situation. So I think we have to, being in CyberLux space, no matter how good we are,
right,
we're vulnerable to that. And I think everyone who signs up to support us, work with us, has to accept that risk.
You know, Datron has provided military communication equipment to over 70 countries. And part of the reason why we were motivated and ultimately delighted to acquire Datron is because along with a global business like you reference comes all of the compliance and all of the processes and all of the requirements that go with deploying U.S. government money to foreign nation partners.
Right.
So, General, your point is spot on with where the challenge is, but I can say that for the last year, we have been working to integrate those Datron processes and procedures where they've fielded this type of capability for the last 25 years across 70 countries. Became the program of record for communication equipment in Afghanistan. And that allowed us to take the small CyberLux platform that we worked with for the original Ukrainian effort. And now we're starting to integrate those processes across. It is a large task. It's going to take some time still, but I can see where the benefit will be for us as we go. The key, as you mentioned, is how do we keep on the edge? How do we stay on the forefront of innovation? How do we continue to drive forward to beat bureaucracy back where we can, but adhere to it where we must? And that's always going to be the balance. So challenge accepted.
Nice.
It's been phenomenal to have General Holt and General Irizarry here. I just, before we close out and I offer my comments to close the session, any closing remarks, General?
Yeah, actually, Mark, I'll just end where I started. We're seeing a massive amount of change in our national security situation. And I think we're right on the cusp from changing the words into action when it comes to really taking a hard look at the way we fund and acquire and field capabilities. We have in the past have been very concentrated on the platform level. And it could take a couple of years to even define what the capability gap is, another couple of years to set it up to be budgeted, another couple of years to get it on contract, and then countless amount of years to actually get it fielded. And frankly, the national security situation has gotten to the point where that will no longer be acceptable.
Yeah.
And I see more and more people understanding that. I see companies emerging like CyberLux, and some others that are actually starting to realize that we need to actually be in touch with the solutions, not just the platforms, and actually going off to create those solutions with direct contact with the warfighter situation and the joint operating areas and understanding of the terrain. And then allowing the military to come up with very innovative and unique ways to access that. We've seen the Defense Innovation Unit. We've seen different contractual methods like commercial solutions openings and other transaction authorities. And so I am satisfied that we are on the cusp of really accelerating this movement from the commercial technology market, which is now by far the state of the art.
Yeah.
and moving that into the military space. And I will tell you, if we can align those incentives between industry and the government and mission need, we will change the situation where currently I would say China is about 5 to 6 times faster than we are at fielding military capabilities. And if we can align those incentives, I will tell you, we will blow their doors off. There is no way they would be able to keep up with a degree of innovation. And I would say that future that CyberLux is going to be a part of creates a deterrent value of its own. And that in the end should really be our design, is to avoid conflict in the first place by being so good at it that nobody would dare try it. And then I'll just end with how honored I am to work with the people that you have assembled together in this team. I think Ferg said it earlier. The different talents that we have are very complementary. They're not tremendously overlapping, but the respect that we have for each other and the deep understanding and experience that we bring to the table, I think has really made CyberLux what it is, and I'm really looking forward to continuing that.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. General Azari?
I would just echo what General Holt just said. I mean, I was going to focus on the fact that I think, looking at over the last couple of years, that the team we have has all the skill necessary to be extremely successful in the future. And under your stewardship, I think it'll be a great opportunity for all of us to see what we can do and the difference we can make in the world.
Right. Thank you very much. So peace through strength and peace through innovation.
Yeah. So again, just really appreciate the opportunity to appear before the team today and be surrounded by such great leaders here within CyberLux. I think the future is bright for the company. We are well positioned in the areas that are the most interest to the Department of Defense and to our nation and allied partners. Thus, I think that the company will do well. We have to continue the focus that we've got us to be successful to date. And that is by working those verticals and even expanding into more as we take a look at where the additional demand signals are going to be coming from as the global fight continues. And I will tell you that between China and what we're looking at in Russia, the needs of this particular company will always be there. And that could not present a better playing field and opportunity for the company going forward. So again, really appreciate the time that all of you have spent with me today and that I've got to spend with you, and can't wait to see what's next for the company.
I'm very excited about the future of the company. I'm excited the personnel that we brought on board. We have folks deployed in different regions of the world. We know there's going to be enormous demand for equipment specifically tied to the border security. All 3 of our divisions are going to do great, and I anticipate big orders coming in the near future. Thank you.
First, I want to thank our shareholders and stakeholders for joining us today. It's been a great conversation with General Holt and General Irizarry, and remotely with Lieutenant General Ostrowski. We're super excited about the positioning that we have in the marketplace with CyberLux, with our core capabilities in the UAS space, expanding capabilities with partnerships, our communications capabilities with our Datron team, and then the enormous reach and opportunity space that the Global Integration Services team will address. We are poised for some significant growth as we go forward. I appreciate everybody's patience as we have gotten to this point in the company's evolution. And I look forward to having us deliver results as we go through time that will make our shareholders understand the value proposition that the company represents as we continue to solve global solution requirements.
All right, guys. There are those that talk about the future, then there are those who are working it. That was a quote from Cameron Holt. And there was a lot there. A lot there. Let's see what Lucid had to say. I'm excited for the future. We have some really sharp leaders. It's great that they put this together. It's much better than the old Flying J monthly Q&As. And I agree. You want to see these companies that have such a huge shareholder base. You want to see them communicate regularly. And so I think this is the beginning of that. And one thing, and I'm going to talk about a couple things. And I'm going to screenshot all those slides that he used, and I'm going to post those in the Discord in the CYBL room so that way you guys can look at those. But it was a great breakdown of the slides. Mark did a good job of breaking that down. And I'll say that it's really great to have an advisory board like all there. That's not what's typical of the OTC. So that is huge. But no, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think they're going to increase their communication more, and we're going to see how the market responds to it. And hopefully the market has a positive response, whether it does or not. Obviously the business is moving forward and they have a lot cooking. And but if you look at some of these slides that, I just screenshotted them as the presentation was going on. They talked about the company, the products, the divisions. They broke that down for us. He talked pretty much about the hierarchy of the defense advisory board, and it's sort of what makes this thing go, what makes this thing grind. They also talked about the K8 and how they're expanding to the X8. That's big. I thought this was pretty cool how they envision the UAS battlefield. I love this. I think this is really, really cool, and I think it's going to prove beneficial to them in securing contracts. I can't wait to see the developments and how they expand upon this. And so, yeah, a lot of these slides, Datron, military communications, and Bill Maderini talked about how, over $1 billion in revenue, so this isn't, like I said before, and I have not let up on this one at all. The truth is this is not a small company. This is a company that has massive potential, that has done, well, he said over $1 billion since its inception. So I would expect more. And he said big orders in the near future. All right. So Bill said that. He talked about big orders. So I anticipate that we're going to hear more in regards to a contract or something, some order that they have. They talked about GIS. This is where they're really putting a lot of their energy into. This is like the guts of it. And so, they talked about border security surveillance technology, and I think that's going to be huge. And I'll go on here: transponder instrument landing systems, maritime surveillance and microwave networks, long endurance fixed wing, VTOL UAS. Now, look, this is where I think it's going to be a home run. They were very promising, complimentary of the the new administration. And I think, especially when it comes to securing the border, I think this is going to be key. I think they could capitalize on this and make major bank off of security solutions for the border. And so they went on with some of these, and they talked about long endurance fixed wing, talked about UAS, talking about capitalizing on the new requirements and how they're going to take advantage of that. So I know I'm really dumbing this down and summing it up real quickly, on these slides, but I'm going to actually take these slides from the presentation. I'm going to put them in sort of a file and put them in the Discord, and you guys could have at it. But like I said, it seems like their camaraderie is very strong. It seems like they're all on the same page. It seems like they're all working towards the same goal. That I thought was great. Like I said, I wrote down big orders. That came right from the lips of Bill. Big orders, for Datron. That's going to be great. And Mark, he opened up talking about how they shed the non-related businesses, and so they could put all their focus where it needs to be. That makes total sense. Love the quote. Azari talked about, adaptability and the ability to be versatile. And so I think that's important. They talked about Ukraine being perfect for dual use drones. And, everybody's focusing on the war's end, but there's also a rebuilding process too that they could possibly be a part of. And I think Mark said he's been there 8 times already. So obviously he has no problem going to where it's complete chaos to help grow the business. So that's pretty damn cool. They talked about merging opportunities into PACOM, Cameron, I think, mentioned what will the next war look like? And I think you got to think into the future and say, how is the next war going to play out? And I'll tell you right now, I think AI and drones, they're not going anywhere. I think mastering the drone and counter drone attacks, that's going to be absolutely key to our safety and the safety of nations that we work with, and so our allies. And so yeah, he talked about what will the next war look like. he's talking about cyberspace and space. You know, there's no international agreements, you know, in regards to I think is what is considered an act of war, you know, and that's another thing that was brought up. And but there was there was so much in this that I'm definitely going to be watching that again, and it's exciting. So listen, I'm still holding strong. I'm hoping that the market responds nicely to this. Obviously, they have some more contracts and more orders in the works. We will find out as they communicate with us. This was a solid update, and so excellent work. And what else did I have to say? Did I have anything else to say? What the heck? I hope you guys are having a good day. I got to get out there. It's still snowing. It's coming down pretty nice out there. But if you're rewatching this, I want you to leave a comment and tell me what you think. All right? That's important. You got to communicate with each other. I want to know what you think, guys. I want to know what my community thinks about Cyberlux. Are you going to be buying more? Are you going to be selling? I mean, did you like what you heard? Do you think this update was missing anything? That's the whole thing. You know, it's you got to just communicate with me. Tell me what you think. So that way, and what guys, what else do you want me to cover? And I want to give a shout out to Brennan Smith actually for facilitating that. And great job. That was a great update. Good work. Good work. Shout out to you. And shout out to Willow S also who went down there. So good stuff. Shout out to you, Will. He was too chicken to come on the show. That's all right. I get it. I get it. Even though that was a substantial poll, but he did tell me that his vote, it was a conversion rate of 20 to 1, 200 to 1. So it was like a preferred note, his vote. So, oh man. Well, listen, I think it was a great update. Let me know your thoughts. Don't just watch this video. I want you to comment on what you just witnessed, what you saw. What do you think about Cyberlux? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Are you going to buy more? Are you going to sell? What did they miss? What did they nail that you think was great? I think it was a really good update. So I'm satisfied with it. I'm gonna pay attention to see what kind of updates they have. Want to hear more about big orders? Want to hear more about their expansion? I think the GIS is going to be huge. I think Datron is huge, and I think they're going to be expanding and growing that now that they have. Like he talked about, I may be misspeaking, but 25 years of a foundation being built. Now they could get real crazy and probably have more revenue and more contracts, and it's just good stuff. All right, that's all I got. I think I'm done. I think we have an ILIS update too. I got to go watch that. So go figure. The day of news. So that's it. That's all I got. Remember, there is more that binds us than breaks us, guys. Have a great Thursday. Peace out.